founder of The Healing Path, also Dancing with Ease, Body Brain Balance. People hire me to teach them to move out of pain and into healing. These conversations with friends and colleagues offer many perspectives on the different paths you can take to healing. The thing we have in common is the concept that healing begins inside ourselves with the decision to change, to heal, and it expands outward from there. My guest today is Alice Elliott, and we're going to be talking about being yourself authentically online. Wow. That's a kind of radical when you see so many things where people are just looking, I don't know, they have sparkles all over them or glitter in their hair or something. But to be yourself and to use commenting in as a way to share who you really are and what you believe in. So I'll bring Alice onto the broadcast and she'll tell you a little bit about her history.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so glad you could join us from clear across the ocean in England.
Yeah, other side of the pond, as we call it.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm so excited to talk to you today. And in a little bit, we email back and forth and things. And I was just excited to hear about your book, about commenting, and a little bit of history, why you decided that to, as the fairy blog mother, you decided to focus on commenting.
Well, everybody seems to be pretty clued up about blogging nowadays, so I was feeling a little bit redundant. So I thought, well, what are they missing in their blogging lives? And the answer is interaction, engagement, commenting, really. Everybody's happily writing stuff and it all goes out and they all feel very proud of themselves. But at the end of the day, they want to have some response. You write stuff for people and you want them to say back, yeah, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. Or maybe ask a question or want some clarification or give their own opinion, all sorts of things. It's so much nicer to have a response to what you're doing rather than just blank nothingness and tumbleweed coming across the screen. You don't really want that. You want to have someone to say, yeah, I like what you read, or no, I thought it was rubbish. I mean, that's nothing at all, isn't it?
Well, and also, like, if somebody has a different experience, right? Like, say maybe you tell a story and you share an experience and what you thought it meant, and somebody said, like maybe it was a car accident or something, and somebody else had a car accident and they had a completely different experience, or they learned something entirely different from that event, and suddenly in the comments there's more information and more points of view even than
people can relate to. If you are lucky enough to write your post in such a way that people can relate to what you've written and they feel that they've got their own point of view, their own experiences to share, because everybody has, you read something that somebody else has done and they think, well, I did that too, or I know somebody who did that, or my dog's cat's wife's brother did that too. So I want to be, I should be able to put forward what my personal point of view, my experiences of that particular subject. And this is what commenting is all about. It really should be allowing someone to tell the story of their own that, of course, is relevant to the original post they're talking about. That's what real commenting is about.
That's a really important point. And I'm going to ask you to expand on that. It's like, so we're not trying to derail the conversation. We're trying to add another layer of content, a shared experience, even maybe meet somebody clear across the pond who had
Exactly.
an experience similar to yours. You
Well,
know,
yes.
I've had people I met commenting on a third person's post, right? I have one friend in LinkedIn, and his name is Ali Anani, and I swear to heaven, he is able to ask the kind of questions in his posts that get 35 or 55 or more comments.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not sure. Sometimes I ask, I think he's just thinking. I think he's just thinking and sharing his thoughts. And he shares them in such a way that everybody says, oh, wow, I never thought of that before. But now that I read your post, I'm thinking this,
Yeah, they resonate with it, don't they? They feel an affinity. They feel there's something, they feel as though he's talking to them. That's what's important. He's not talking about himself. He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for his readers. And he's doing it for one reader, because you're always one person yourself reading it. And therefore you need to feel special, wanted, needed, appreciated. And he's obviously doing that correctly to get that number of followers and that number of engagement and comments. He must be triggering something within his readers that makes them want to respond to, are compelled to leave an answer in response to what he's actually written.
And sometimes, and I want people who listen to our conversation to understand that if you personally relate to somebody's work, I mean, sometimes people will share a poem that expresses
Mm.
similar feelings that were expressed in the post, but not similar words at all, you know. And the then what else? Is I've met people through these commenting things, reading somebody's comments, I suddenly have an idea of who this person is
Mm.
and how they're thinking. So then I might watch their comments on 2 or 3 posts and see, like, oh, I like how they think. I would like to know them more.
Exactly.
Um, and then sometimes I reach out and send a friend request or something, and it's somebody I would never have met if they had not posted a comment on this, in on this blog topic. Say it's a blog topic about,
It doesn't have to be a blog. It could be somewhere on social media. I mean, the
these
whole
are
idea
on LinkedIn,
is
actually. These are
so
just little posts on LinkedIn. They're 2 or 3 inches or 4
yeah.
inches or something. And the thing I sometimes, okay, now there's 2 things. Sometimes I write a comment and it's like, oh man, I've been thinking this for a long time and I never wrote it this way. And sometimes I grab that comment and I save it in my notes and I later expand on it and make a whole post of my own.
Yes.
Because there's something about answering a question, or like this conversation, responding in dialogue. I think our brains work differently, don't you?
I think if you're wanting to communicate with that person, then yeah, your brain does change, because you are looking positively. You're trying to get their attention. You want to communicate. It's all about communication. And engagement should be communication in a positive way. It should be all about wanting to make a noise in order to get heard, but the noise is in response to what they've just said. Same way as you say hello to someone you walk down the street and you recognize them. It's the same factor, but you just do it in words online, in a sometimes in a real-time environment, which is luckily for social media.
That is kind of fun sometimes. Like if somebody posts a comment and I respond and they respond right away
Yes,
because they're online at the same time in some other place in the world.
exactly.
Um,
Yes, it's that is the beauty of well, it's Point 2.0 is what it originally started off now, but there's going to be a new version, Web point 3.0, coming out, which is another level. So again, it's not quite sure how it's going to work. I need to do research on it, but it's going to be interaction on another level, which just means it's spontaneous like it is nowadays. Yeah.
Cool. So what's the most fascinating thing that ever happened to you from a commenting series or adventure?
I actually spoke to someone on Twitter and found out he was a really high level marketing chap, and ended up going to one of his seminars. I mean, that's you it's almost allowing yourself to have a conversation, and you then find out so much more about that person. And if they respond favorably back to you, then you can learn stuff. And eventually, if you can worm your way into an invitation to go somewhere and listen to them speak, or better, this is something that would happen. This wouldn't happen if you were just, saying something like nice post or
Ah,
to hear from you. It's almost a chance for you to have a proper conversation and ask questions and get responses, and then volunteer more information from that. That is how real proper interaction happens, how good engagement should take place.
right. It's almost like a networking event.
Yes.
And if all you do is go around the room and shake hands and hand out your business card, you didn't connect with anybody. You
No,
know,
there wasn't any reason for them to respond. Yes.
they'll just take your card and put it in their pocket, and 3 months later they'll, I
They'll
wonder
think
who that
that
was,
and throw it away.
and throw it away. Right. Whereas, if you spend a little bit of time conversing, and that's, I think sometimes people don't uh, realize that comments can be conversation with and these posts I told you about that have a lot of engagement. A lot of times, people who are commenting, they might reply to somebody who has already commented, or they might make their own comment and reference two or three other ideas by other people who have already commented. And so it's much more like a discussion that you would
Mhm.
be having at a table between other people, and then I might say something like, well, when I was talking to Alice, she suggested that the comment, that just saying, smiley face, this is not adequate. But then somebody might say, well, but I liked it,
Yes.
and then I would say, well,
Or I might say, I learnt this from it, and it had this effect on my life or my business or my relationship. I obtained some benefit from it. It made a difference to me, or it made it help me allowed me to go and help someone else, make a difference to them. But it helps if you're able to elaborate on what you've learnt and what you're going to go and do with it, and the effect it has on you. It makes it all worthwhile for the person who you're commenting to, because they feel that they've actually achieved something, they've done some good, and somebody's benefited from what they've said. And this would never have happened if they hadn't commented, because they wouldn't have known that what they've written was worthwhile or helped someone or made someone's life better in some way. And that's
and
what commenting should be all about. It should be this way of people telling other people how much they appreciated what they've written.
so I had a very funny adventure, which was just really actually wonderful for me. And I was cleaning out my email box. And I found an old email from, this would have been probably 2 years ago, from like 2017, that said, somebody I was following and getting a lot of emails from them at the time said, my husband is an actor and he's doing something with improvisation, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Let me check that. Well, that link didn't work because, like, oh yeah, it was really old. But I searched the person's name and it popped up that he was or had done a podcast with another person, and the podcast interview was about the importance of improvisation in like in living your life, not just in acting, and how these skills from acting translate to living happier or easier or whatever. And so so I read the post, and I watched the interview, and I listened to the host, and it was a WordPress blog, right? So I could make a comment. And there was a lot of things that relate to my life about performing and dancing and all of this stuff. And so I commented.
Good.
The host, like I was on WordPress, I maybe had to put my email address in the background. It doesn't show up on your commenting post, but he emailed me and said, this was so awesome. Well, the interview was about a year old, but because I commented, it popped it back up into frequent free feed or
Yes,
something on the internet.
before, yes, yes.
And he volunteered to be on my Healing Path podcast.
Oh, brilliant.
You know,
Superb.
Matt Del Negro, he's like a famous actor. I'm like, what? You know,
That would never have happened if you hadn't commented. You know,
right.
you made the effort to connect.
And it was heartfelt, right?
Yeah.
What they had talked about in their interview made me think of things, made me remember things in my own life, made me appreciate that they took the time to share that. And that's part of what I put in my comment, was my appreciation for them taking the time to share these ideas. And and it was just like one thing, another thing, another thing, and then it just evolved, like your workshop and your marketing. You,
Yes.
you I wasn't commenting to get something, you know. I was just commenting.
You were just showing your appreciation. Yes, exactly. But you were doing it in a forthcoming way. You did it in a way that obviously showed your interest and showed your appreciation. And he could gain how much from what you felt about him, because you probably made more of an effort than he would have done than probably the majority of people out there who wouldn't necessarily. A lot of people don't bother, do they? They just like to have shove a few words out, or put an emoji up, or maybe click something, and but that's fine. It's nice to know that somebody's noticed your stuff, but isn't it nicer for them to say, "Hi, I really enjoyed your post. It did this for me, and it's made me think like this." And the person who receives the comment thinking, "Wow, this person actually read my post, and they've liked it, and it must be worthwhile, or they wouldn't have bothered." And if anybody is clever enough and canny enough, then they will go to the details, because you can see the person who's commented, and you can see their email address, and you can send them an email, and not only just replying to their comment saying thanks very much for commenting, etc., etc. You can also have a personal, private conversation, because you can see their email. And as you said, that's how things develop, and that's how you get invited into podcasts and such like. That,
All kinds of
see?
things. And I ran this along the bottom. This is your commenting club. It's also in the description for people who want to click on it easy in the description.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
And so in the commenting club, do you help people craft meaningful comments?
Yes, I help people to understand that commenting has many facets. You can use it for many purposes. You can use it for business, you can use it for pleasure, you can use it for research, you can use it to keep an eye on your competitors. That's also, people don't realize that. You can use it for finding out what your customers are thinking, whether they like your product, whether they prefer a competitive product, whether they maybe talk to their mates about how they wish their product did something else, or there's something missing, or maybe the price is too high, or they can't find it in a certain store. I mean, this is all stuff this is all commenting happening to other people, to their friends online, that you can do what's called social listening. Now, you aren't interfering, you aren't in joining in conversation here. You are lurking and you are learning, and you can do that with commenting. And it's a very powerful tool to be able to go in there and suss what other people are commenting about. And if it's commenting about something that you are interested in, maybe it's your brand, or maybe it's something that you maybe want to develop, or maybe it's something that that is part of your business, you can learn so much from these people purely by listening into their conversations. And then once you've gathered this information, then you can tentatively join in. But again, you've got to be clued up, you've got to be ready, you've got to understand these people, you've got to learn everything about them so that you don't make a mistake or a faux pas, or ruin the situation by jumping in. But commenting has many values. It's almost like you don't have to do it yourself. You just need to find somewhere where people do it a lot and do it well, and then you can learn stuff from them. Because once they feel comfortable, then they will comment all sorts of stuff, which is all very interesting and very valuable for research purposes. So it isn't just a matter of commenting on someone's post, whether it's online or a blog or anything. It's also it's reading what other people say. See what they say. What can you learn? What can you find out? How can you use that information to improve what you do, to make their lives better?
That's true. I hadn't really thought about it as research, but even meeting people is research. I mean, a lot of times when I engage with somebody on a commenting thread based on their comments, I want to know more about what they do.
Exactly.
So I might go visit their website or their profile and look at what they're creating or doing. Maybe if it's writers, what they're writing, what kind of material they produce. And in a way, for me, it's easier to respond to a post or a comment, to reply, but because I have a responsive gene.
Basically. I know.
I mean, it's almost impossible for me not to respond sometimes. But that's a lot of times easier than starting a post.
Yes.
Or even referencing someone's comment, or referencing, someone spoke about this and it reminded me of that. And then I'm able to really even write a whole post if I want to, but it just flows out of the exchange. I think that's the word I was looking for, is the comments are an exchange.
Yes. The communication exchange, yes.
Just hitting like or putting an emoji, that doesn't tell anybody anything about me other than that I passed by their post. It doesn't tell them anything about how I think. It doesn't open a door for them to tell in any more detail than their post or their comment about how they think. And I think the social part of social media is exchange.
People forget that it is social media, and it isn't a one-sided affair. It does require 2 or more people to join in together to make it social. And therefore, don't stop the conversation straight away from the very beginning by just putting an emoji link or a like button. Here's your carte blanche invitation to say what you think. As long as you're kind and considerate and forthcoming and positive, it will always be accepted. Even if you disagree with what they've said, as long as you do it tactfully and kindly, then they will appreciate and welcome your point of view. I mean, they may not agree with what you've written, but it doesn't matter because you've been nice about it. And they're not going to feel aggrieved or aggravated.
Well,
And they're
and
more likely to want to respond and say, "Well, look, I'm sorry, but you've missed this particular point, you know, what
right,
about
right.
this?"
Or they write back and say, I think I failed to make this clear, this piece of
Yes,
information clear
yes,
in my original post. And then it gives them the opportunity to flesh out their idea a little bit more. But like you said, it's research for them. Oh, they clearly missed my primary point.
yes. They didn't
They went off
explain it.
on this tangent. Oh my gosh. Somehow I didn't articulate this well. And it gives the it gives space for interaction. Now, because it's me, and although we're doing this partly on Facebook and stuff, um, have you noticed a trend in, well, I'm sure there's a million trends, but phases of time when commenting is good, platforms where commenting is good, platforms where it just kind of
Fizzles
goes
out.
flat. It, um, I know in the beginning when LinkedIn started, I was in some groups, and most of the commenting, the valuable commenting that I experienced, this would have been 2011, 12, 13,
Mm,
the before Microsoft bought LinkedIn,
mm,
is the really interesting discussions were happening in these groups. Some were writing groups, and people were talking about aspects of writing. One was teachers of classical ballet, which is my heritage, and I was doing some new work, and I had, I had questions like, how do you teach this? Or how do you teach that? Or somebody says, I have a student who's doing this, and they might show a picture of some really feet that were not able to stand on their toes right. And I've tried this and I've tried that. Anybody have suggestions? And so it was very dynamic and nice.
brilliant.
Then
But then
somehow,
it all went disappeared, didn't it? Around
yeah.
about 2014.
And I think that it's something, I don't know exactly what happened, but it had to do with, well, I know it. I know what happened is Microsoft bought LinkedIn, and they didn't have probably the capacity to continue everything that had been built up by LinkedIn. And so they decided that groups could go by the wayside. And they somehow stopped supporting it in, let's see, how did they stop supporting? They stopped sharing the comments. That was, and I don't know how any of these things work,
Yeah,
really.
they changed the algorithm, they changed the mathematical programming so that, as you said, they didn't give credence or highlight the benefits of commenting, and it was severely restricting the amount of reach people got. They
Right.
didn't allow commenting engagement to be shared more widely to a large amount of people. They seem to think that if somebody was prolific in engagement and getting comments, they obviously were providing very valuable information people wanted to read and find out more about. So therefore, these people should get more reach, get more clout, get more audiences. And people who were not lucky enough to get such sufficient amount of engagement were penalised, were thrown in the rubbish heap, were, neglected and forgotten and abandoned, sat on almost. So I think that's unfair because I think everybody has a right to have their comments and their engagement appreciated by their friends. Just because they don't get that many as so and so down the road, you get a couple of hundred comments. Their comments may not be of sufficient value to make it interesting, whereas Joe down the road, who may have got only 10 comments, but they were extremely valuable, useful, helpful, and enthusiastic comments, he gets penalised because he didn't get 100. And I think that's what happened. I think the algorithms were badly written. They weren't written to really appreciate that there are some people who are there who may have decent conversations on social media and therefore need the reach, the highlighting, the emphasis that they weren't getting before.
I think that after that, some other platforms came up and disappeared. Then, then for a while, probably 2015 to 2019-ish. There was a very good in groups, for sure. Again, see, in groups, special interest groups, right? Or
Mm. Niche
so that
groups. Yeah.
people were talking about a topic. I already identified that the topic was interesting to me, so that's why I was in that group. And then again, there was dynamic commenting on Facebook. But once again, in about 2020, the Facebook started to throttle. That's how I call it, like
Yes,
narrowing
they
down
squeeze the life out of it. Yes.
the sharing of the comments. And the thing, it's like, in the effort to help me, they change what kind of notifications I would get. And this is, artificial intelligence. We probably could have an entire other conversation on
But
artificial
that's
intelligence.
another subject, and we won't go down there because it's a real minefield.
Well,
But
it is, but
there's too much automation going on. I don't think they allow human content anymore. The human factor, the humanity, the humaneness of conversation, commenting, interaction has been pushed to one side. Moderation is a very large subject. It's also very necessary, especially in today's world. There's so many unscrupulous and undesirable people out there, and beings, and even automated things get in the way. So moderation is huge and desperately needed, but because it's so massive, most sort of platforms like to think they can employ a robot to do it for them. That's not the case. You do need to have humans to moderate humans. And it's not going to work because an algorithm isn't nuanced enough to understand what people are trying to say. And he will misinterpret it, and then that will be it. You'll be, cast aside, even banned.
oh
You
no,
know,
I had like a comment, like I was inviting somebody to a, a group on marketing that was really fun and dynamic, and and they said, this post uh, goes against our
it
sexual
reaches some
content.
protocols.
Sexual
Yeah,
content. It gave me sexual content. And I'm like,
yeah. But there wasn't anything
"What?"
in there.
But there was not a single word in it. So I disputed it. And fortunately, uh, the bot accepted my dispute. But it's not a human
Yes, it doesn't
who is
understand.
not who's not reading it and
Yeah,
understanding it. And so I think one of the most wonderful things is when you write a post or you are in a commenting conversation, that the people responding are people. And
it's
that's really, like you said, the the purpose of social media is for people to be able to engage around specific topics that are of interest to them.
yes, and you aren't jettisoned, and you aren't channeled into areas you don't want to go. Humans have an innate desire to want to be able to communicate with other persons, and they may do it in a way that, say, a robot can't understand because obviously they're not human, and therefore, it may seem to be very peculiar and strange to this poor algorithm who doesn't understand where this particular subject is going, and so that's why you need to have humans all the time. I think the idea of the world becoming automated is terrible. I think, there we get more and more people being born on this planet. Why are we pushing to one side and saying, no, you can't communicate, you're not allowed to, or how can have a robot do it for you in the first place? And this isn't just on social media, this is on people's websites. You want to ask a question, make a complaint, find out info, and you go to a chatbot,
Oh,
and the
I'm sorry.
chatbot doesn't understand.
It doesn't understand English. The chatbot does
No,
not understand. Oh, I can't even tell
because
you.
you're going around in circles. You ask a simple question, and it spews out some stuff which is nothing to do with what you're asking.
No, no, I keep going. Give me a human. I just keep typing over and over.
I
Give me
say,
a human.
can I speak to a human, please? And then the poor chatbot says, do you want to speak to a human?
And you're like, "Ah, that's what I said."
all I wanted was to talk to somebody else. I want to look for an email address for simple things, just
Right.
something formal
Well,
conversation,
perhaps
that we used to have in the old days. What's wrong with telephone number?
right, right. So perhaps we will come back on another day and talk about automation in communication, because that is okay, autocorrect, you know.
Yeah, that's
No,
something with me.
I didn't say slam.
No.
I
Why
said
why why does it assume that you know what you're going to say? I mean, I've got my own thoughts, thank you very much. I'm reasonably intelligent. Why should I have some stupid mathematical thing tell me what I'm gonna write?
right. Add this word here, and and it's like, no, that's not the end of the sentence I started.
No, and also
In my email.
that's not the way I want to spell that word either.
So let's see. People can reach you. They've had all the things will be into the comments, which is your Twitter and your website and your Facebook and your LinkedIn. And so, can you, in summing up, share? Is there something that you think is the most important when you get ready to comment that people should keep in mind?
Yes, you need to know who you're commenting to. So if you can find out their name and use it when you greet them. Hi, Sally. I really appreciated your comment. I have learnt X, Y, Z, and I'm going to take it away and I'm going to do ABC with this information. And I'm going to therefore let you know how well it goes. And then, thank you so much for allowing me to have this say. You could say loving kisses if you wanted to. Alice. I mean, it's almost like you're allowing yourself to be personal by reaching out to them and letting them know that you know that they are human because you're human. And say by saying hi Sally at the beginning immediately makes Sally wake up. Oh, she knows my name. Oh wow, that's really interesting. This person wants to reach out to me. And it's such a simple little thing to do. Say hi name.
I
Just
think
rather than launching in with something that's inappropriate. You when you see someone in the street, you wouldn't go straight to them and say blah 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 blah. You say hi with their name, or if you don't know their name, you find out what their name is. But this we don't have to be so cold and impersonal. We need to be friendly. We need to be accommodating. We need to show an interest in somebody else.
human. And be authentically ourselves, who
Exactly.
we are, you know,
Exactly.
sharing with kindness and thoughtfulness. I think this is really
Kindness and relevance and appreciation and wanting to understand the other person.
so.
That's
This
important.
has just been really fun, Alice. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing about all the different ways we can bring our whole self into our commenting.
Thank you. I've only just touched the surface, actually. There's so much more.
I know, just the surface. So maybe we'll do it again. Talk to you soon.
Brilliant. Take care. Thank you very much.